Welcome to this co-living webinar on branding and concept design. We created this webinar because we know how hard it is when you create a co-living concept to make certain choices, to make the choice of the audience, to make the choice of the marketing strategy, to make the choice of the pricing, to make the choice of which amenities and services will I offer. In this webinar, we analyzed 20 different co-living brands active in 2023, and we'll show you a lot of real case examples of what brands do nowadays, what is their concepts, and how do they differentiate themselves. We want you to be successful in this game. We want you to have an amazing time creating beautiful co-living concepts. So this webinar is for you to understand more of what's right in terms of branding and marketing. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this third webinar today on concept and branding creation. Really excited to have you here because after introducing whether it's time for co-living, and we believe it is, and introducing the different types of business models, we want to look today at concepts, brands, and how to position themselves and what they're actually doing. So how we're going to go about it today is quickly talk about what is concept creation about, what is branding, why is it important, and then we're going to analyze concepts, marketing, and pricing and differentiation points from different brands. So we hope that's going to give you a lot of inputs and ideas. Just quickly about ourselves, we are from ArtofCo. My name is Gui Perdrix, and I'm going to introduce also my co-founder Mayank here.
Hi everyone, I am Mayank Pokharna. I've been in the co-living world for the last decade. Happy to be building ArtofCo along with Gui. So I just wanted to take a minute and talk about what we are doing at ArtofCo. We are helping all kinds of co-living entrepreneurs to develop, launch, operate, and expand. Now, what does that mean? You can be in any stage of co-living. If you have something where you need help, we can work with you and take your venture to the next level. So far, we have advised more than 70 plus companies over the last 5 years, across 13 different geographies. And some of these names are mentioned here. And we do multiple things under ArtofCo. Can we go next? So we have resources. These are, can we go back? We have a lot of resources which are like some of them are paid, some of them are free. So we have ArtofCo Living books. We have recently launched a new newsletter, which is called Everything Co-Living. We do these webinars under Co-Living University. And we're soon going to launch a course which can help you take your co-living ventures to the next level. So just to speak about some of them in detail, all these webinars that we are doing, right? A lot of what we speak, you will find everything in the book called ArtofCo. And that is something that we kind of live by. So if you're looking to enhance your knowledge within the co-living world, I would definitely suggest you to give it a read. And then we recently launched Everything Co-Living, which is now read by more than 10,000 co-living professionals around the world. This is a weekly like summary of co-living news and what's happening in the co-living world. It's on Substack. You can go and just type Everything Co-Living and find it. Then we do these co-living webinars. This is a series of 9 webinars that will happen, one every month, where we pick up one topic and go deep into it. This is like a course in itself, because this gives you an exposure to everything that is to be understood in the world of co-living. And last, I would like to speak about the Co-Living Founders Program, which we're launching in January of 2024. This is where this will be like a program for limited seats. So 10 global co-living entrepreneurs coming together for 6 months, and we will help them scale their businesses. Gui, why don't you speak a little bit more about the program?
Yes, we're going to mention it again at the end, but very simply, we started there's a lot of like entrepreneurs who are actually very lonely. And especially when you start scaling around like 50 beds, there's a lot of like challenges that everybody have. So we want to collaborate with like 10 entrepreneurs and help them navigate through all of the decision making. We're going to show a few a bit more at the end. Mike, thanks so much for giving this recap. I hope you guys can find a lot of value from everything we're doing. We're both, and everybody that works here at ArtofCo, we're all former co-living entrepreneurs, so we know what it is to go through, and we really hope that with all of the knowledge and resources and programs that we do, that you can learn from that. So let's get started. How to make the most out of today. A couple of things. You're going to receive all of the presentation afterwards, but it'd be really cool for you. You're allowed to take screenshots. You're more than welcome. Like, please take notes, especially of things that resonate, and also piece of questions, because we would love to answer them afterwards. I don't think we're going to have time on this webinar, but please email them to us, and we'd love to help. Before we go into this, Mike had an amazing idea. This is the third webinar we're doing. We're super grateful for all of you to be here. We just want to take a quick screenshot, if that is okay for all of you. If you, that would be really amazing. Everybody can just like say hi. Thank you. It's amazing. Cool. So let's get started. Drum roll. Boom. Introduction. Now, today we want to talk about brand and concept. Why is branding so important? The number one reason is if you have a consistent brand, that's actually pretty obvious for everybody. You're going to have a better reputation. Better reputation means you have residents who care more. Residents who care more means you have more retention rates. That also means you have more referrals, and overall the brand is going to get better. One quote that I personally really like is happiness equals reality minus expectations. Why do I mean that? Because for residents, it's exactly the same. If you're promising something that's higher than the actual reality, you're going to create frustrations in residents. So what you want to do is you want to under-promise and over-deliver. And especially you want to make sure at least that what you promise is there. And that is what's called brand alignment. Now, there's different types of relationships you can have with a customer. If you see customers that just customers that come in once, most probably you don't care about brand loyalty. They're just going to create a product, a housing product that's kind of going to work, and where people like use it once and then leave. That happens, and you have co-living spaces that run it like this. You also can see that they have on average 2.5 reviews on Google. Usually, financially, it's not going so well. Second option is simply being connected. It's brand loyalty, creating a good product where residents are happy. And the third part, and that's something that not so many are doing, but it's about creating a lifestyle brand. Lifestyle brands is, for example, Zumba or Nike, right? Like people strongly identify, some people really strongly identify with these notions. There are some co-living spaces where people truly identify with their co-living spaces. Even like I remember co-living operators sharing with me how residents even got 2 of that name. I'm not saying you have to go there, but the point is how close do you want to be to your residents, and how cool of an experience you want to create. So these are kind of like the 3 relationships you could have. And overall, the brands, you have like 4 main goals. First is to align your concept with the audience, creating something that people want. The second one is the right marketing, creating marketing strategy that appeals to the people. And the third part is the pricing. And if you have these 3 models kind of together, it's going to work. And then this is where we add the 4th one, and that's differentiation. It'd be cool if your brand can be different from other brands out there. And that's what we're going to analyze today. For those who were not in the past webinars, we have like mainly 3 types of co-livings that we categorize. One is what we call the houses. Houses are co-living spaces that are built in houses. Usually it's around 15 residents. And then second type is what we call apartments or buildings. So some co-living operators take several apartments within the city, and usually they take these several apartments within a building where they're able to then, for example, add a co-working space or a social lounge. And then the third big category of co-living is what we call developments. So developments are ground-up constructions mainly, similar to PBSA or student housing, but now for professionals and generally adults. So what we analyzed is we split it a bit up, and we analyzed on one side what we call the normal or remote co-living spaces. These are usually the house typology, doesn't have to be, but it's usually the house typology. And they are in a remote location. To compare that, we also chose 2 brands that operate under the housing model, but in cities. And then we analyzed further brands that are usually asset light, such as these brands, Common, Urban Campus, Habit, and they operate apartments or buildings. And finally, we have some newcomers, new concepts that are playing with developments, and here really control over the entire building. And usually they are also investors, developers, operators. Now,
first thing that we analyzed was, how do these brands actually portray themselves? First of all, we analyzed, like, do co-living spaces label themselves co-living? And most of them do, 80% do. 5% label themselves co-living with a hyphen, but in my personal theory, this is going to die out. And what's interesting is that there are some, and we're going to share which ones, they label themselves co-living in apartments or shared and private spaces, but they don't mention the term co-living. Summary, most people use the term co-living. Here are, in terms of when we use the taglines of the different spaces, these are the keywords that always resonate: community, work, living, life, home, shared. Now we're going to go through some taglines. First, nomad co-living. So what you can see here is, like, there's a lot of, like, work smarter, live better. 12th century castle meets the remote work revolution, work anywhere, live differently. It's a lot about work with different living. So that's kind of the time. Mayank, do you want to add something to that?
Right. So when we talk about nomad co-livings, again, it's very geographic in nature. If you look at throughout Europe, it will be mostly about remote work or digital nomads. But if you look at Southeast Asia or probably other parts of the world, it is more about living closer to nature and unwinding themselves, right? So it's more about creating a community of people who are traveling while working, but in different ways. So if we just go ahead, we also did a very interesting experiment. We gave these taglines to the AI and asked them that how will an AI interpret these taglines. So if you closely look at it, work smart, live better, the AI representation of that is very different than what the brand is wanting to perceive, right? And similarly, work remotely, unwind and live close to nature is probably a little bit more closer representation of what a nomad co-living wants to do. Similarly, can we go to next slide? This again, one, affordable co-living homes and world-class community for digital nomads. It looks like something which is not urban, but the interpretation of AI was an urban, right? So it's very interesting to see just whatever is your tagline or whatever are your values or ethos, just give it to AI and see what it perceives, because it's very interesting way to see how other people are looking at your brand. Now, when we move to other typologies that we spoke about, if you look at apartments and buildings, it's more about all-inclusive communities and like everything you need for an well-lived life, all-inclusive. You will see that all-inclusive and amenities are given a lot more focus because larger apartment buildings have common spaces, have amenity spaces which they can play around with, right? If I look at houses or if I look at like developments, then we will look at other kinds of brand persona coming out. Guy, can we go next?
Yeah. I just want to ask the person that is annotating to stop annotating, please. That'd be very nice. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I think it's me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to check out. It's like I cannot take it out. I'm sorry. I will not teach anything.
Yeah. Right. So in houses, it's more about community. People want to create community, get people together. And that's the kind of branding we see in most house typology kind of brands. And when we go to developments, these are larger developments. Guy, can you go to the next slide? These are the larger developments where we speak a lot more about holistic development or live, work, and have a community. So it's like combination of multiple things in a single space, because larger developments can afford to have that kind of a space to support the branding that they need, right? So those are the different kind of taglines you see across different types of typologies, and it gives a very different meaning. Guy.
Yes. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to stop and reshare again. Then we don't have this issue. All right, let's go back. Perfect. So a couple of brands that for us also stood out, a couple of things, for example, Cool. Why? Because actually they played with the term co-living and then they created their own terminologies. Instead of co-living, it's actually cozy living, cozy place, cozy working. Another example that we want to highlight is, for example, co-hubs, because co-hubs, even though being an urban co-living, they have a strong representation for home and for members. So I want to show you this. Let's go to the website. So one strong association, I'm going to give you a counter example just after that, is that co-hubs put a lot of effort into highlighting community. And so if you go, for example, to the community page, it's one of the most beautiful community pages I've seen, with a lot of pictures, members' story that you can go through, videos, the universes of the community. And on top of that, then they tell you that everything of that is on a fingertip in the app. And you even have like the types of events are being hosted. That from a community branding is strong and perfect. If we look at, for example, a different type of co-living, which is common, we're going to see a completely different story. Let's go to the website, common.com. Common being the largest co-living operator in the US. You can see a completely different story here. It's co-living in apartments for today's renters. Find beautiful spaces with exceptional service, convenient amenities, and all-inclusive options. Again, no mention of the word community. It's really about service, all-inclusivity, and amenities. And that is fine too, but it's just going to create a different audience. On top of that, you can see that Common uses across their website a lot, even the fact that community is optional. Living in Common means you're not always invited and never obligated. So it can kind of give you an idea of actually who is moving in there. And most probably people are moving there because they just need housing, not because they're dreaming of being part of a wider community, being engaged. So what are some of the core values that spaces have? Maya, I think this is yours because you created these. How did you come up with core values?
Right. So I'll first speak about Nomadgaon because that's where I was involved in creating these values. We were trying to, when we started, we were trying to create a space for people who were doing remote work, who were digital nomads, but wanted to get away from the hustle of the city, but still wanted to belong. They didn't want to kind of go somewhere remote and stay alone and work. They wanted to belong. They wanted to become part of the community. They wanted to experience nature as well as the history and the culture of the space. So we did a very detailed survey. And then when we interviewed people, we realized what they wanted. So that's how we came up with live, connect, belong, work, and experience, because that's all that you want to have when you go to a space. And different people connect to different values. Not everybody will connect to all the values, but that was the inclusive way of creating these values. And if you go to Sun & Co, right, they have very specific way of putting their ethos or core values, that it's about experience, it's about becoming more productive, it's about finding your people. So I think this is something which is very specific to each brand. If we go ahead, we will see so these are more like nomad spaces or short stays to medium stays brand. But if you look at the, can we go to the next slide, Guy? That talks about like long stays, right? Like Treehouse, Oslo Co-Living in US. They do long stays, and when they do long stays, the way their core values comes out is very different. So it's about creating and nurturing the sense of community, well-being, and they talk a lot about holistic living, healthy living, and that is something that is very different from when you see nomad co-livings, right? So it is very brand specific, but it should speak about what you want to stand for. Guy, what do you think?
Nothing else to add here. Nothing else to add. I think the only thing that I would add is like figuring out what are like core values is great, but I think your approach of actually asking people what they care about is better. Just quick question. I read in the chat that my internet is not stable. Is that still the case?
No, it's better now.
Okay. If everyone has a comment, please put. So Want to share a couple of spaces that really stood out in terms of differentiation. First one is Cool. Let's look at it. Why is it different? Cool is a co-living operator in France. They have already 4 locations and 4 more locations coming. And each location is around 5,000 square meters. So they have 3,000 square meters of housing, 1,500 square meters of co-working, and 500 square meters of amenities. Why do we mention Cool? Because that brand, first of all, really stands out from a concept. You really have these like huge workspaces that you can book, and at the same time, it's a brand that's actually appealing to a more mature audience. If we look, for example, at their Instagram, you can see that's like one of the only spaces that also features a more, let's say, people in their 40s, in their 50s, people also with kids, and they have a really good representation of like actual events that are happening, and you really get this like kind of community vibe. So that's one example that really stood out for us. Another one is Node. So for those who know Node Living, Node has been around for 7 years already. And the really cool thing about Node is that they differentiated themselves from a more like high-end design perspective and now also introduce community. Also targeting a more affluent audience. But the cool thing about Node is that they actually have different types of products within the same brand. So as you can see here, one concept, 2 ways of living. And then they have the Node Boutique with more exclusive properties. And then they have the Node Hubs, which are entire buildings for an audience that's more long-term and also with a tiny bit less purchasing power. So again, it is possible within one brand to also create different types of sub-brands or sub-products. We already talked about Common. Now let's look about Habit. We have to look about Habit because Habit claims to be the largest operator in the world. They also bought a lot of former operators. So what you see at Habit is literally nothing else than unlock your next move, right? That brand is completely focused just on rental. It's about making living accessible. And when Luca Bovone, the founder of Habit, came during the Coliving Summit, and he actually shared a presentation how he doesn't care about community. And that was very interesting. And we had a conversation on stage, and I shared also that we do have different opinions of what community means and how it is important. But point is, this is a brand that does work by literally just promising unlock your next move. And that is their main promise. And they don't promise anything else. There's something else that we need to talk about in co-living, and that's affordability. Mayank, do you want to share about the Settle?
Right. So Settle is an Indian brand operating out of the Indian Silicon Valley called Bangalore, and then they have multiple spaces. They have found very interesting like gap in between the in where the co-living spaces can fit. So they cater to premium customers by providing more boutique spaces, but they have an affordable segment which starts at as low as $150 a month. And they make it affordable and accessible for a lot of people of that segment. And they're a lot more functional in nature. They're technology first, which enables them to become more and more affordable, right? And their whole promise is around comfort, that you will, even though we are affordable, but you will find comfort when you come to Settle. Like that's their brand promise that they come with, and that's what reflects everywhere when you see and speak to them.
Noting also that affordability it's a whole topic, and right now there's very few co-living spaces that actually mention the term affordable, and it has a very simple reason, is that usually co-living is actually not more affordable, but it's more convenient and has a lot of other added benefits. Other example that we really liked is Urban Campus. Why did we like this example? Because Urban Campus is actually also an urban co-living operator. The cool thing about Urban Campus is that they have been established for like 5 years. They have a super strong brand. in terms of like their websites, but also around community. And especially actually when you look at the Urban Campus Instagram, let's go and check them out. You're gonna see that a lot of posts are member posts. Let me just change that. Urban Campus. Oh, sorry, that is not it. There we go. So cool thing about here come slightly different type of branding. If we compare this, for example, with cool, where like a lot of like professional images, and here you're having a lot more organic images. A lot of these images are actually also taken by people. Like this is a selfie. Like these people are actually submitting this to the operator, and sometimes also have the chance to actually post it themselves on social media, which makes the brands more authentic. And let's see, we want to highlight first Mason & Fifth. Why Mason & Fifth? You're going to see it yourself, because this is actually is a co-living space that's really targeting established professionals. We're not talking about people in their 20s. We're talking about people in their 30s and their 40s, and people with a certain degree of maturity. And you can see this in their brand. Check it out. Everything you need for a life well lived. And the focus, especially on like health, is super important. You can see that it's more authentic. You can explore the buildings. So that's for Mason. So these are some of the top brands that we analyze. And then here's the thing. When you look at most co-living spaces, it's always the same audience. Like 90% of the time, what you're gonna find is something like this, right? On the left, we have the Urban Campus one. On the right, we have the Cool one. But it's kind of gonna look similar. From a marketing perspective, usually what's really good is to have a hybrid between events, community, and then how people use the community, use the space. And finding that balance. There's some co-living spaces that just put marketing just with their spaces, but you don't see the interaction with it, and that's very sad. Now, you can choose different types of niches. For example, even within the digital nomads, you can choose high-end, like outside, that's targeting more affluent nomads, or you can choose affordable living, which is, for example, what Nomadico does. So even within the digital nomad sphere, two different types of product for two different types of sub-niches. The same thing as we explained, you can have two different audiences within one concept, like it's the case for Node. And finally, there's way more audience out there. So one of our favorites here is called La Casa, because La Casa, they have different houses, and each house is for a specific type of interest. So it's in French, I'm going to translate. You have the co-living house, the green one. So they have like huge garden. They have a botanical garden in the back. You have the house for the chefs. So they actually have like a legit proper chef's kitchen. And you also have like the wellness sport co-living, which is equipped with a gym. Why do we mention this? Because actually the concept of creating these like niche audiences is really smart and works pretty well. And that operator is now also moving towards what we call our autonomous seniors. And that's a switch that's actually happening by quite a few operators right now, realizing that there's a huge community of people in their 60s or in their 70s that are physically super well. Sometimes they're single, and they just desire to live in a healthy space with other people to spend the last decades of their lives. And there's more and more services being provided. Another company called Upside also like pushes a lot towards that. So we're seeing as a big trend. And then like the next version will be then multi-generational, having these houses where people from like seniors and youngsters are willing to live together. All right. Now, let's talk a bit about length of stay and go into some more details around that. Generally, a couple of things that we can say for the length of stay. Like one question when you create a core brand, like how long should people stay in my place? There's no universal answer. We would say there's two types of co-living. There's those that do long stay and those that do short and long stay. Sometimes people do medium stay. What do we say with long stay? Long stay means like 6 to 12 months. Actually, the average occupancy or the average length of stay in urban co-livings is around 9 to 12 months, and some even further. And short stay means 3 to 7 days. So let's have a look. For example, somebody like Mason and Firth that we just showcased, they offer both options, right? So you can see on their website, if you're looking to stay for 3 months or more, please select stay a while and book a tour. For anything less than 3 months, select stay a few days to see what's available. And then we're going to talk about this. They also have two different types of applications processes. Another one, Mayank, this is yours.
Right. So a lot of nomad stays starts with they become very flexible, because if somebody is traveling and coming to a place to explore, they may stay for a few weeks or a few days. It depends. So these kind of places, they generally keep it flexible. They keep a minimum of 3-4 nights because they don't want to get people who are transactional, like 1 day, 2 day travelers who are passing by, but they want to create community with the right set of people. So that becomes really, really interesting. So you start with 3 days, but with NomadGao, the average stay, even though they start with minimum 3 days, the average stays is about 21, 22 days. And that's very, very interesting because it makes it makes the business so much more easy. And people stay more because they, as Guy said at the start, right? Reality minus expectation is what happiness is. And if that is maintained, then you would want to extend. And there is at NomadGao, there's a 30% rate of people extending their stay, which is from an industry perspective, great, right? And that happens with multiple nomad spaces. Similarly, with 9 Co-Living has discounts for longer stays, but again, the concept remains the same. And the moment you go to long stays, it becomes very different. The messaging, the kind of length that people want you to stay for is like for Oslo, which is in Washington, DC, they do long stays, is like 7 months or more. And then you get, they push people with different offers and specials to sign for long-term leases because their value, the value of the community that they're creating lies in long-term leases, right? And that's how they have built the whole brand. So that becomes part of the long stays.
Yeah. And now, short, long stay, we're going to compare this with service and amenities. So generally, when we look at all of the spaces, we analyze like what types of amenities are inside spaces. And here right now, we're not differentiating between the different typologies. But what you can see is 100% kitchen. Why? Super essential, right? And then you can say co-working and garden terrace is the second type of amenities that's being offered, followed by gym or event space. Then finally, library or music room, and very, very few, like here at 0, it's because it's not always the case. There's a few co-living brands that sometimes offer swimming pools, but it's just really not something that's coming up. Now, here is our analysis of the different brands. Top, you have the developments. Here you have the houses. Here you have the buildings and apartments, and here the nomad co-livings. And what you can see on this slide is a couple of things. First, the ones that do houses, so the typology of around 15 people, usually they do not have a co-working space inside. I found it pretty interesting, and I think that also reflects that 1, people have a workspace in their room, and then 2, there's most probably a lot of people that also work because these people are living a long time, so they probably work also within the city. Another thing that's also interesting to see and to witness is that like these really cool things, like for example, music room or sometimes like gaming room, or recording studio, they happen usually in the larger buildings or in the developments. They do not happen in these other spaces. And then finally, what we can see is that there's no unity on, is it that important to have a gym or not. What we can see is those that can't afford it, they do, especially in these larger spaces, usually in nomadic co-livings, which is also houses, there's no gym. And then some, around 30–20% of the co-living space usually have a dedicated event space or social space that comes on top.
One thing like I would like to add here, Guy, is that it's very interesting if you go back and look at their taglines or their ethos or brand values or the values that they have put up on their website or they swear by, you will see a very consistent reflection of who they want to serve and what they want to do and that translates into the amenities, right? Because if somebody is saying that we are a creative space and then they don't have a creative room, that kind of doesn't translate well. So it also depends on what your brand promise is, what your values are, and that translates into a lot of amenities that we see here.
So there's a few other amenities that you can also have, and these were from the 20 examples that we studied, like some real ones. Game rooms were in like 2, production/music room was also in 2, art studio was in 1, sauna was in 1, and that's one thing I actually do not understand, because everybody I talk to about like whether you would love to have a sauna in your building, there's like, hell yes, sign me up. So I think for around like 10,000 euros, you can buy a sauna. It might be a really cool investment for your co-living space and differentiation points. Wink. Home cinema and barbecue and rooftop lounge, of course, if that's possible. Now, let's look at the services. What services are offered? And it's rather straightforward, right? Like all co-living spaces offer cleaning, or at least almost all of them. And cleaning here is usually once a week of the communal areas. There's only around like 5% of co-living spaces, like in these examples, there were like 2 or 3 that offered also cleaning of the private spaces. Laundry elements are usually here. Note that sometimes co-living operators also charge for laundry. Food is usually not taken care of, although you have some co-living operators that take care of at least like the basic supplies. And events usually hosted as well in terms as a service. Now, there's other services that you can offer, right? Some co-living spaces offer bikes, electric car services. You have some mobile co-living spaces that offer these like little surprises, like undefinite tea and coffee and crepes on Sunday. So you can even think about like some little services that would actually really benefit your resident and make you stand out. And another trend that we're seeing is there's more and more co-living operators, especially the remote ones, that offer team retreats, that offer to like book parts of the space or the entire space for corporates to come. And we're seeing for the urban co-living spaces, also a lot of corporate partnerships where companies rent out sometimes an entire floor for their employees and have a contract agreement for a couple of years. Mayank, is there anything else that you would add on services?
Yeah, so there are, again, it's very use case specific, but in the colder regions, a lot of times people require, let's say, something extra. So these are places for generating extra revenue streams for a lot of co-living companies. They do rent out heaters, or they do rent out extra beddings. So those are some smaller things which are very geography specific, which becomes part of the additional services they provide. I think you've covered everything well enough.
Lovely. Okay, ladies and gents, are you still awake? Yes. I have a second screen. I see you. Want to go into marketing, and here what we want to do is we're going to show you, we went through all of the Instagrams and all of the social media. We're going to show you the posts that perform the best, and we're going to show you some more insights because we also used some tools. So let's go. First, Mayank, this is your domain. How does marketing work in co-living? Give us a quick overview.
Right. So for any kind of marketing in co-living, it starts even before your co-living space comes into picture. when you are conceptualizing your co-living space, it's very important to start building a digital presence right from the start. So setting up your website, setting up your SEO initially becomes very, very important, because it sets you up for visibility directly to your relevant target market. But as we go along in our product journey, then the paid marketing or the third-party rental platforms, which can be co-living specific or OTAs, comes into picture. The social media comes into picture. And as we move ahead and start creating brand loyalty, as we speak earlier, then the community starts becoming very, very important part of the marketing mix, because that gives word of mouth, that gives you referrals. And the combination of these, based on what part of your co-living journey you are, whether you are just starting or not even started, and then whether you are growing, the combination or the priorities order will change accordingly. But this gives you the understanding of what channel has worked for co-living companies so far. Can we go to next?
Yes. Now let's actually look at some of the best Instagram posts. So as we said, we analyze all of the social media of these different brands, and here are the ones that work the best. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Number one. So one thing that worked pretty well was, for example, like doing like special promos. So here, this is Nomadico Co-Living. And targeting digital nomads, and they did a partnership, for example, with Safety Wing, which is a company that offers insurances for nomads, where they're giving away a month of 1 week accommodation plus like 1 month of insurance for free. It worked pretty well. So like you can also think about other companies that maybe have like additional services and do brand partnerships. Second thing that works, and that is actually the one, let's see. Five, four, three, two, one. This is the best post by far. First of all, you can see it has 15,000 likes. So that's crazy. This is by CoHubs. The cool thing is that this post was not posted by CoHubs. It was posted by one of their members. And I don't know whether this is influencer marketing or not. The cool thing here, though, is that the entire co-living story of like how that worked really well. Is this one? That is from Treehouse Community. So Treehouse is a co-living space in California. And the reason why we mentioned this one, we believe it had a lot of clicks and likes because here, this is one of the videos actually of the founder talking and introducing the reason why they created this. And I personally am a huge...
People were not able to hear the last like 30 seconds. So if you can go back and speak about it, I think your internet was a little bit...
Thanks. Yes. So this one is a video of Treehouse Co-Living in Los Angeles. And the reason why this video most probably performed well is because it's emotional storytelling. And it's actually the founder who's explaining the story behind the concept. And in a lot of co-living spaces, the founders are not mentioned. It's very sad. I think there can be a lot of more emotional and human marketing that can be done that will resonate with the residents so that they understand who are actually the people behind that. All right. So these were some of the best performing Instagrams. Again, usually video, and best thing is like if you can put real people in front and if the content can come from the community itself. Now we also analyzed that could be helpful for you guys too. I'm sure you're doing a lot of posts. So here are the most commonly used hashtags in the spaces that we analyze. I mean, co-living, community, urban living, co-working, co-living space. colocation, co-living live studios, and then usually you have the brand name itself, or you have also the city. So these are the ones that are most commonly used. Now, another thing that you can do is you can do marketing to raise your supply. So one really good example here is Pad Split. And most of the marketing, they're doing it not to attract residents, but they're doing it to attract homeowners that are going to adopt their models, which is pretty interesting. And actually, if you go to their website, they did a really comprehensive website to explain to hosts how partnering up with Pad Split will make way more sense. You can see the showcasing like how it would transform the units. You can see also the income breakdown that they offer, and that page is really comprehensive. So highly recommend to check out Pad Split, especially because they're the only ones, or like one of the only ones that are really focusing on the demand side. Now, we also analyzed some ad spend. So for example, this is how, because we're curious, like how much traffic goes to website actually through Google, SEO, and how much is paid. Now, as you can see, for example, here with Common, they have different types, they have different bikes. Seems like recently they've been investing quite a bit since 2023 in ads. And their own SEO is actually not improving. And the other interesting thing is you're going to see, if you analyze how other companies spend their ads, a lot of the wording is around apartments. They do not mention co-living. They're targeting people who search for apartments, and these people will then click on the co-living space and find the housing. There's other communities like co-living spaces like Treehouse that doesn't spend any money on Google. That's pretty cool. And then we also checked out Co-Hubs, how they spend their money. And here, same thing. The most relevant ad right now that's going out is about apartments, and then about co-living, co-housing, short-term locations in different languages.
So one interesting thing to see here is that although the co-living movement is growing, a lot of people are staying in co-living spaces. They are looking for co-living spaces. But when it comes to kind of getting the majority of people to see your product, you closely see that none of them have their major targeted keyword as co-living. They're targeting adjacent keywords, which are studio apartments, which are room rentals or studio apartments, and then trying to get them to experience the co-living using multiple ways. So that's the way of expanding the market. That's how more and more people will start knowing about co-living. More and more people will come into this fold and understand what the concept is. I understand that a lot of people do greenwashing. They don't live by the promise that they make, but that's the part of the growth and the maturity with which the co-living is now growing through, because I truly believe a lot more people understand and know what co-living means than they knew in 2020. So I think we are in the right track, but this is the way to expand the market in your respective markets, wherever you are operating.
Yes. Now, if you want, the way that you can check out how other people do ads, there's something called a Facebook ads library. If you type into Google, you can find all of the ads of all spaces or all profiles that are public. So just type in co-living, you're going to see what type of ads other people do. Same thing, SEMrush and Ahref. And Mayank, you made a little surprise for today.
Right. Let it come. So generally, we keep getting questions. A lot of co-living entrepreneurs keep reaching out to us at ArtofCo, like, okay, what do you use for this? What do you use for this? And most of the questions are around marketing. So we made a list of marketing tools that we have used in past, or we continue to use it. And these are the use cases, like different use cases for which these different tools are very relevant. Now, we will send you this presentation, and this will be a reference point for you to explore and look at what kind of tool works with you best. And if something is expensive, then you can always go to Google and write Wix alternative or Webflow alternative, and you will find other options which can be much more cost effective. So this is something for you which can help you manage the overall marketing much better.
Yes. Note also, we're going to have a special webinar dedicated to marketing, I think in, when is it, February?
Yeah.
March?
Yeah. Feb.
Yes. All right. We want to finish with one section, and that's about booking and pricing, because that's the last promise that you have to deliver. Once you have the concept right and your marketing right, got to get the pricing right. All right. So first of all, we checked what is the process. Should co-living spaces have an application process or not? What you can see is that for the remote co-living spaces, mostly it's direct booking. When it comes to actually like the houses in urban areas or apartment buildings in urban areas, it's almost exclusively application. There's almost no direct booking. Why? Because that's your long-term, and it usually involves a screening process. And then with the new developments, it's 50, meaning that some do accept applications and others don't, especially if they offer also short stay. Couple of things that we really liked from the applications that we looked at. The left one is, for example, for common. We liked it because actually there's two call to actions. One is get in touch, the other one is book a tour, but it's exactly the same call to action. It leads to exactly the same thing. They also ask about the budget, so they can exactly know whether the person is going to be able to afford a common or not. Other things that are pretty cool. I think this was from, let me get it wrong, right. I think this was from Urban Campus. They ask whether the person is working or studying or in between. And another one also asked whether are you going to move in single or with couples. That's also very good questions to ask. So that's going to give you an understanding of what type of residents you're dealing with.
And this is very interesting from community curation perspective, because this helps you eliminate the people you don't want in your spaces. And that profiling is very important as you start growing, as the community starts growing. Having the right set of people in the space is very important. That's why, as part of the application process, we now have a lot of roommate connect kind of softwares out there which can help us match right people, and that roommate matching can take the experience to the next level. So that is also what's happening along as part of the application process in many co-living companies around the world.
Yes, when it comes to pricing structure, usually it's very simple. There's a basic rent, and sometimes meaning around 60-70% of spaces ask for a deposit. Now, how do you pitch that, right? Like usually the basic pitch is this. This is, for example, from Common. You can see that the pitch is basically, if you were to organize all of the supplies and utilities by yourself, you were to pay more than if you do it through our company. So that's usually the standard pitch, and this has been like, this table has been used by a lot of like co-living operators. But now there's also other ways of pricing things, and we just want to show you, because there's around like 10-15% of operators that charge an additional service cost. So you have your basic rent, and then you would have a service cost. Sometimes it's for stuff like, they label it as like Netflix and these services, but sometimes they also say this is the community budget or the experience budget. And that allows also sometimes from a legal structure to, on one side, collect rent and pay specific taxes on that, and on the other side, collect money from a service where it's less tax. So it can make sense from a financial point of view. And then some spaces also charge energy bills on top. It's very few, but the ones that do, their argument also was that it makes residents also more aware of their consumption. So that's one pitch that you can give. And then you can add more things. Cool, for example, has additional services, such as parking. But the last one that we really want to mention is the idea of the community pass or social club, because there's more and more spaces. Here, for example, this is Sun & Co. They offer a community pass, and that means you don't have to live at the space, but you can still attend the co-working and the events. And we truly believe that co-living spaces can be hubs in neighborhoods in which people can also join and have different types of residents. You have the residents that live here, but you also have the ones that come through they don't live in the building, but they're actually part of the community and part of the events and part of the co-working. All right. That was it for today. Mayank, what are your final words?
I think the learnings from today for me has been about right from the creation of concept to the execution, right? There has to be a same line of thinking. It cannot be compartmentalized. It cannot be done at separate points in time. Somebody who is developing a co-living space needs to think about all of this holistically, because ultimately it affects your brand or the value that you are trying to create for the end user. So that is something that that I would leave everyone with.
Yes. And I'd say for me, it's like, it's been very interesting to analyze all of these brands. And especially, I think that the ones that are going to ultimately win are the ones that have the best experience. And we're starting to see this in the differentiation points when you look at the ones that don't put community in front, that don't have organic social media, that do not understand customer needs. Well, then the end result is usually a bit dry. And we really hope that you can avoid that. And we wish you all of the best to find your positioning and to find your niche and your audience and your marketing and your pricing. Look at what other co-living companies are doing out there. There's a lot of information you can find yourself. And we just want to bring your attention again. If you haven't, go and check out the Art of Co-Living, because we wrote this by interviewing around 200 co-living operators. So this is not our knowledge. We're just people that collect expertise and add our own expertise on top. But really, this was one of the most amount of co-living knowledge that's been ever collected, and we highly recommend it, especially for your different activities and operations. We really invite you to the next webinars that we're going to be hosting. Next one's going to be on fundraising in December, and then we're going to kick off in January again with architecture and interior design. And going to go afterwards into resident community experience, technology, sales and marketing, and operations. And
I think
so
this will.
Yeah.
One interesting thing is, if you look at what is required from a co-living entrepreneur's perspective to like start and scale a co-living business, it's right here on the screen.
Yes. And literally the way that we're trying to do these webinars is by going through like what you guys are going through, right? And that's the journey of an entrepreneur that goes through building a co-living space. And we're really excited to be hosting all of these different webinars with you. Yes, finally, we're going to send out an email again, but in January, we're going to launch a program for 6 months for 10 entrepreneurs in co-living. We're not sure yet whether it's going to be a prerequisite of whether you already launched or not, but our idea is that we want to work with 10 different entrepreneurs from different countries. They're not in direct competition, and go together through 6 months through operations, fundraising, investments, your legal contracts, how you do your leasing, literally everything that's impacting your business, and tapping into each other's brains. So if that is something, especially I know that myself, when I was running a co-living, I had a chance to have an amazing co-founder who's actually sitting right behind the camera, but not everybody does. And sometimes you need a sparring partner, and also you want to learn from peers. I think that would be an amazing opportunity. And
if somebody is asking, how do you choose them? How do you choose the people?
Good question. We're gonna choose them based on like the degree of maturity. So most probably, if you're still in the very, very beginning stages and still exploring, it's not for you. And we're gonna choose based on also track records, because we want to work with people that are that can deliver on their promise and that are very ambitious and desire to create their spaces. And the final thing that we will add, probably, I don't know, right, but like, it's going to be also simply the type of personality behind. This program is going to be very tight. We want to have 10 people who are really into it, who are open to sharing and supporting one another. So if that resonates for you, then we'd love you to join. So that's it.
So David,
you're going to receive recording.
So David says no. David is saying no startups. Like, we are not saying that no startups. It just depends on the overall profile. What are your plans for growth, and how are you looking at things? So even if you are a startup, do reach out and we can have a one-on-one conversation and figure out how this can work out for you.
Yes. And we might also create 2 groups depending on the stages. For example, if you're just starting, I noticed I saw in this call, there's a lot of people that are still in the concept phase, but already started. Sometimes the funding is secured. You have different types of challenges than if you're already operational and you're already, like, for example, have like 50 to 80 beds and now you're scaling up. It's a completely different game and a completely different stage. So we might create 2 groups just based on the stage.
Thanks for watching. We hope that you learned a lot, and there's a lot more to discover. This is why we're inviting you to join our program, as well as, if you haven't, get the ArtofCo Living book. Both links are in the description. We hope to see you on other webinars and resources and events that we're hosting. Have a great day.